Second chances. Chapter 16.
There are many issues to be settled before we can call this the end of the story. After the Constitution teleported the 220 new ensigns to the various rendezvous points, she entered a parking orbit around Naval Base 13 to await new orders. Admiral Halloran and Captain Stevens and O'Reilly, along with their ladies, invited Commodore and Mrs. Clausen to dine with them aboard the ship. The evening went very well. The Admiral and David both chipped in to prepare the meal. After dinner, the men retired to the captain's ready room and the ladies to the captain's quarters. On the one hand, the ladies discussed their men and their hopes for the future. On the other hand, Sherry believed that Halloran would rather die than leave the service again. She only wished that there was some way to give him back his strength and his reflexes. She knew that he wanted nothing in the universe more than to command a heavy cruiser again. She had watched him while he sat in the center chair while pursuing the ship from the compendium. If she had only a suspicion before, she knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that the center chair was where he truly wanted to be. Marge Clausen admitted that Jerry was very much like Halloran. He wanted to be in the center chair of any heavy cruiser. Being tied down to a desk was sapping away his drive, his energy, and in a way, it was sapping away his manhood. She dearly loved him. He was attentive and considerate of her needs, but he would love nothing better than to journey into the unknown, where no man has gone before. Stella talked about David and her hopes for the future, that they and their family might continue to journey into those unknown places. She confessed that he had never been happier. The center chair was his place, and hers was next to him. Someday she might resign her commission to raise a family, but she loved the thought. Shirley was still in awe of the people she had dined with. She spoke very little until the other three stopped chatting and reached in and pulled her out of herself. She began to see that these were three ladies of great character. She spoke of her wonder that she had been given a man who loved her and had interests much like hers. She could be more a part of O'Reilly's life because they were both engineers and loved the ship. As the four ladies chatted, they grew closer and closer. By the end of the evening, Marge was in tears because the other three would go, and she would be alone again. Talking over coffee, the four men discussed the robots that had attacked so many planets and destroyed so much life. It was inconceivable that their prime directive could be so badly contaminated. But, after a while, the conversation turned to past victories and future hopes and dreams. Tim talked about the Enterprise and the places he and his crew had gone. O'Reilly chimed in with many fond memories. Admiral Halloran said somewhat wistfully,
"Mr. O'Reilly, those were the days. I wish we could go back."
Aye, Admiral. Those were the days. I'm glad of every one of them. However, I can't see a way back, so with Shirley, I'll be happy to serve aboard the Constitution until my days are all gone.
You're so right, O'Reilly. With Sherry, I am happy. But, I would throw these stars into the disposal if I could command a heavy cruiser again.
David told about his time in Vietnam and how he believed the politicians had never wanted to win. The restrictions placed on the generals and commanders cost many good men's lives, and they were still lost. He was very morbid talking about the entire era. Then he softened a little as he talked about meeting Stella and what she meant to him. He was happy to be in the center chair with her by his side. Life, finally, was good again. Jerry sat quietly, not saying much. Finally, Tim turned to him and asked about his past and desires for the future. Jerry said as much as the others had. He longed for the center chair of a heavy cruiser. He would chuck the rank if only he could command a ship again. The naval base routine was mind-deadening.
Hopes die of malnutrition in the Commodore's office.
Halloran recalled that he had known and been the friend of a Commodore who commanded a heavy cruiser. Commodore Charlie Simpson had been his fellow heavy cruiser commander and friend. Perhaps Darien would see his way clear to reopen the position of heavy cruiser commander to Commodores as had been in the past. He promised to propose the idea to Admiral Marovich the next time he had the opportunity to talk to him. After a time, the conversation subsided to a few words strung together, but each man was lost in the world of his own heart and mind. Finally, David stood. "Well, gentlemen, what say we join the ladies in my cabin for a nightcap and then retire? It has been a good evening. I have thoroughly enjoyed the company and the conversation, but I think it is time for bed." The other three officers reluctantly agreed and went to join their wives. In the cabin, David asked his guests their preferences. O'Reilly asked for scotch, and David poured 2 fingers of 100-year-old pinched Scotch whiskey. Shirley decided to join her husband and asked for the scotch as well. Jerry and Marge asked for nothing but some black coffee, which Stella went to get from the replicator. Admiral Holleran asked for Gorn Ale, and David produced a bottle of the same. Sherry asked for a little white, dry wine, and Stella poured her a glass of Liebfraumilch. Finally, David and Stella each chose a small glass of strawberry brandy. After they filled all the requests, David proposed a toast to old times, new journeys, and good friends. Each one held up their glass or cup, good friends. Then almost to a man, calm seas and fair winds. This was the closest any of these 8 people had ever been to another besides their spouse. This was a friendship that would transcend time itself.